Hi guys, Tashoma here in honor of Autism Awareness Month to give you story time with Autism Fighters Inc. We will bring you real stories of families just like you. We hope that this brings a sense of empowerment, comfort, and hope to those on the same journey. And we want to give a big thank you to all families who shared their stories with us, our followers, and our awesome sponsors. We wouldn't be where we are today without you. Enjoy! Thank you so much, Miss Griffin, for coming out to share your story with us. We just thought that it would be great to get some autism champion families already who's gone through the process and kind of share it with others who are on the same journey that may need some help. Just someone to look up to, a story to say, I'm going through that too, and just some pointers on how they can handle it. So if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Okay. Well, my name is Kim Griffin, and my husband is Charlie. We have 3 children. My oldest is Sarah. She was prior marriage, and then my son, who is autistic, Drake. His name is actually Charlie the third, but he goes by Drake, the middle name. And then my daughter Lynn. And we're just really as normal as a family can be. We just had to deal with autism, and but we also had to deal with an active child, and it's just another thing. So
Right.
Don't feel like a champion. I just kind of lived my life and mothered my child and did what I could to do to help him.
Right.
Along the way.
Yeah. Right. So you have your son Drake, who was diagnosed with autism.
Mm-hmm.
What age was he diagnosed? What made you feel like you needed to seek medical attention?
He was always a different child, but he was always quiet, but he wasn't antisocial at all. He would talk and he would laugh and he smiled and he did everything that you would think just looking at him you would never know, But I guess it really started probably in pre-K. He just had to have things his way, Every day we picked him up, we cringed, because we knew there was going to be a report, there was going to be something, and there always was. And it was this day he took a truck away from a child and hit him with the truck, but the child had taken it from him first, I guess, in his mind. But it was every day. We cringed. We knew it was something, and we had very supportive teachers, and then we had those that just wanted nothing to do with him. And the most supportive teacher was probably his pre-K 4-year-old. She had a grandson who was diagnosed with ADHD, and he had a heart issue, and they didn't know it until they put him on Ritalin, and he ended up in the hospital. So she was so leery to say anything that might prompt a parent to take their child to,
Wow.
and push to Ritalin. So everything my son did was just because he's a boy. She never wanted to admit it, but it got to the point where we came in one day and there had to be a report written, and we were used to those, but this one involved the director was there, she was there, and another teacher had to pull him down at 4 off of the table. He was holding a chair above his head saying he hated the class, and it was like a King Kong moment. And she still said, he's just a boy. He's just a boy. And I thought, so we knew something was there. It shouldn't be this every single day. And
Right.
when he went into kindergarten, we had a teacher that did identify, I think he's at least ADHD. So we went to the doctors, and we did. And he was diagnosed with ADHD. And we didn't like the first doctor, mainly because he was trying to prescribe medication that I knew was terrible medication. And I just
Right.
went to another.
Right.
Every one of them said he was ADHD. When he was probably maybe 2nd or 3rd grade, we took him to one, and she was very good. And she said, basically, she didn't want to put him on the spectrum, but she said, you've got the spectrum where highly functioning is here, and then you've got full-blown nonverbal over here. She said, he's kind of here. So she didn't even want to put him on the spectrum. Finally, when we got into high school and he was 14, we went to another doctor, and I found one. I actually went through thinking maybe we had complications at birth. So I wanted to rule out cerebral palsy because nobody ever really addressed it. So we took him to a neurologist, and they did a CAT scan, and he was fine. There was no damage or anything like that. So he just suggested to send us to this psychologist, and she had a neuroscience background. and she did a full-blown, the whole spectrum of testing. And she finally said, he's Asperger's. She said, and also what is so, I mean, we've been here for 18 years. So what's been bad is one day they call it Asperger's, one day they call it highly functioning. Things change within the medical community. And I think right now we're in the day of we don't really acknowledge Asperger's. It's highly functioning.
Right.
And she even said, but 50% of the psychologists out there today would argue that there's a difference between highly functioning and Asperger's.
Right.
So we're just going to stick with Asperger's for now. I mean, because he met all of the criteria. I read everything. I read everything on it. So, I mean, just judging every time I would read, how they're like, well, they have 3 of these symptoms, and my son would have most of the symptoms of different things. So, I mean, we went through just so many different tests. We had speech testing done on him. We had processing testing done on him. And, I mean, we spent money on crazy things. And we, when you first do it and you spend $3,000 to do something, you want to see the change. And we did. We were like, well, we did notice he was riding the bike a little better today. And, you look for every little sign because you just want, you just want something, and, but finally, you get to a point where you just, this is my son. Right. This is what he is. This is what he's got. We got to just work with it. Right. And we made mistakes. Right. We made tons of mistakes. Right. But he's good now, and luckily he's never really had a problem. He had one tiny problem with bullying in 5th grade, but it didn't last long. And we've had him in good schools that the kids really accepted him, and some of it might be that his condition didn't let him know things were being said or done about him. And that's kind of a blessing. Right. But yeah, this is going to be really long. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. But it seems like to me, when it's high functioning, the journey is a little bit tougher because if you can go ahead and get it diagnosed early, at least okay, this is what it is, this is where we go. But you all had to go for a while where you didn't know, what was happening, and then when you don't know or others don't know, it's hard to get the services. It's hard to get help. Right. When you go through that process, so I commend you all definitely for going that long.
And it was almost like they were afraid to say anything, right? And I know it's probably more an art than a science, psychology and neuroscience, right? Because you just got to paint that stroke with that brush, and you hope that gets the kid in it, But it's just, we finally found somebody that would finally say it, and that was such a moment. Okay. And we finally were able to tell our parents, and we told everybody, because as much as we love everybody in our family, we did have family members that would, he's fine. And I would have coworkers, he's fine. Right. And that almost hurt me more than because it's almost like saying, well, if he's not fine, there's a problem with that. Right. What's wrong if he isn't fine? Right. It's okay that he has something, Right. And I had one, every time I would say his special ed teacher or his special ed classes, she would get offended. And she's like, stop calling it that. And I said, that's exactly what it is, and there's nothing wrong with it, But I mean, it's been a very long journey, and now he's close. He's going to be graduating in May, providing he passes. He's got one end of course test, and we're worried. But if he doesn't, we go to summer school. Right. It is what it is. But
you just keep going.
I'm just so proud of where he is. He's come so far. And just he's done most of the stuff that he's done. We took him off Ritalin. He begged us to get him off Ritalin in his sophomore year, or actually it's his freshman year. And he struggled at first, but he found music. He puts headphones on, and we had to. That was another battle. We had to battle the teachers and say he's not ignoring you. In fact, he hears everything you're saying and he pays attention. We had to, and that's what this last when I finally found the advocate at the beginning of the year. We were able to finally, and I said, if you want to know if he's paying attention, ask him. So now his teachers are orally assessing him at the end of each class, and he went from failing to a 90 plus average, because now they know he's paying attention. It's just how he has to work. He has to tune out the other white noise. So he has to make his own white noise with his music and drown out everything else, and then he can focus on what's right in front of him.
Right, because he'll be paying attention to everything that's distracting him from the teacher. Right. So you felt a relief once you finally got the diagnosis.
Yes.
And so now you can, have your IEP and put the things in there like music, or he needs headphones to make sure
and to stop writing.
Right.
They were insisting he take notes, and he's got dysgraphia. His handwriting is like a 5-year-old, and it's hard for him to read. And I said, if he's putting any effort into this writing, I promise you, he's putting none into listening to you.
Right.
So, and as soon as they did, they stopped making him take notes. They realized he was paying attention, he's listening, and he would just sit there and look at them for an hour in class, and he could just spit out everything they talked about.
Okay.
So, everything's a little battle, Okay. It's one battle at a time.
Right. You just handle it as it comes. And I know you said you didn't feel like you were a champion, but I think that's what makes you champion, or any family that's going through the journey, anything that's coming up, you're working hard to fix it. What do we do? Like, what procedures do we put in place? What do I put in my IEP? What team am I assembling for my child to make sure that he's getting everything that he needs? So I, think that that's totally awesome. And so, can you tell me how has this, and you said a little bit about how it affected your family, with your family members and everybody saying he's fine. So once you got the diagnosis, what were their reactions when you told everybody? How did it affect his sister?
I don't think anything changed.
Did anything change? Okay.
I think she's accepted him from day one,
okay.
and she kind of was. Even though she's 4 years younger, she was kind of like a little mama to him. And as he got older, that got a little more annoying for him, because he knows she's not, even older than him. So they still have their moments, but even that's. But as far as the rest of the family, they, I don't know how. I can't put myself in their shoes, because they spent all this time saying he was fine, and it's hard to go back and say now, oh well, I was wrong. So most of the time they just okay. My dad had the best response. He's like, so? So I said, you're right. He's like, he's going to do what he's doing, and he'll be fine, so. But it's funny that was the best reaction I got, was so.
Right.
And that's what they all should really be, because it really shouldn't matter. You have different things to deal with, different things to do, and learn from. So.
So what is his plans for the future? Does he have goals? What does he want to do after high school?
He's got to narrow down his goals. That boy has a lot of goals.
That's great.
He'd love to blacksmith, and we're actually looking at different things. There's some classes in Atlanta he can take, but first off, he wants to go through Columbus Tech, and he wants to go in through drafting too, and he really enjoys drafting. So there's some programs that we found through, they have that transition fair that they have at the college every year. Okay. And we went to that, and there's so much out there for people like him now, and there are so many people out there ready to help him and support him, and it's been great. And this year we've probably found out more about him and his condition this year than any other.
Awesome.
And all those years, in fact, I thought I was doing the best advocating in the world that I could. I didn't realize until we got an advocate how much I didn't know. I didn't know how much I didn't know, and she's been amazing, but she really just opened my eyes on everything else that's out there. So. Okay.
And that's totally awesome, that you speak about advocates, because for Autism Fighters, the most important part of this process is early intervention.
Yes.
And we have a grant where we actually offer, families with a diagnosis to apply for the grant, and we help provide an advocate for them.
Right.
Because like you said, if you're coming into the school system, you're handed all of this paperwork, and these are your rights, and it's just tough as this one person with 5 different, it could be a speech therapist, you're a psychologist, and just having someone on your side that kind of knows and that can support you, I think is just everything.
Yes.
And like you said, you're advocating for your child, but just someone who actually knows, hey, this is what you can have.
Right.
And really explore that with you is great. So, your advocate, did you want a speaker name?
Yes,
or?
it's Marianne Young. She's
Okay.
with the Exceptional Services. I think it is Advocacy Exceptional. I'm sorry, Marianne, but it's Marianne Young. You can look her up.
Yeah, and I
because
got her information from you,
Yes.
so I'll probably just post her
Yes.
name in the video. Do you have any advice for families who are on the same journey? I know that for you, you know, it was different. You didn't have as much support
Right.
as there is now.
Right.
But what kind of advice would you give someone on this journey who's just found out?
Trust your instincts and never stop fighting. Don't take no. Don't take their first answer. You can always fight. You can always go back and appeal. And definitely, instead of spending thousands of dollars on different types of therapies or new age things, spend the money on an advocate. And if you can find help to get the money, that is the absolute best thing I've ever done. And really, the pricing for that wasn't that bad. I mean, it was, can I say the price? It was,
Yes.
it was $500 for us to get the advocate, and that's
Yes.
it. And we spent $3,000 on that new age. It was a interactive metronome is what they called it, and it was basically trying to align the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
very, very new age, and we were hopeful. And again, like I said, we looked for anything to say it worked, but it didn't do anything to help him overall.
That's interesting.
So instead of spending that money, I wish I had put it towards an advocate early on, because they can set them on the right track from day one if you can.
Absolutely.
So that's absolutely the best advice I can give.
Okay. Awesome. I think that's all I had for the questions, unless you had anything else you want to share. Again, I really, really appreciate, you coming out, sharing your story with other families. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin.
Also, the early intervention process is very important to us. Please tell your family and friends with an autism diagnosis to visit our website today and apply for our Little Scholars Program. Thank you.